Namaskar, good evening, and welcome to In Conversations with Hingori Sutras. Sri Guru Datta, Dattatreya, is considered the synthesis of the three Trinity who preside over the seven planes of creation. He is considered the foremost one. The foremost one in Sanskrit means the Guru. Not much is known about Dattatreya. To help us discover, understand, and know more about Dattatreya, we have with us Dr. Vineet Aggarwal. Dr. Vineet Aggarwal needs no introduction. He is a doctor by qualification, a manager by profession, and an author by passion. His literary repertoire extends from politics to poetry, travel to tourism, but his favorite genre remains the amalgamation of science and mythology. He is the celebrated author of three very successful books published by Penguin Random House: Vishwamitra, The Legend of Parshuram, and Bharat. His widely read blog, Decode Hindu Mythology, has clocked more than 2 million views from all over the world. Apart from this, Dr. Vineet has been a part of various literary festivals and has been invited to speak on various forums on topics related to mythology and its role in the modern world. Dr. Vineet, a very warm welcome to you. आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है.
Thank you so much, Hingori Sutras, for that very kind introduction. And once again, thanks for giving me this opportunity to speak to this audience and the dedicated followers of Hingori Sutras. Every week I've attended a few sessions, and I've seen that every week there is something or the other which is out of the box that you share. And I feel that the knowledge that is being shared through the medium of Hingori Sutras, through the various speakers that you invite for your talks, I think it's quite valuable, and it's quite helpful in a practical sense as well. So if I'm not mistaken, the previous session was on the three gunas. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely right, Dr. Vineet.
Right. So I would like to start from there and link this session, today's session, to the previous one by saying that there's a term which is used very often for Dattatreya, and this term is called Avadhuta. So there have been numerous rishis, numerous saints and sages in the Hindu pantheon. And you have heard of Brahma rishis and Raj rishis and so on and so forth. But the only saint or a sage or a rishi for whom this term Avadhuta is used is Dattatreya. And where it fits in with the previous talk is that an Avadhuta is somebody who has transcended or moved above and beyond the bondage of the three gunas. So I'm sure the audience which has been regularly hearing the talks and the people who have attended the previous session would understand that everything that we do is somehow tied up with the gunas and the inherent tendencies that we have for action, for thought, for speech. And Avadhut is somebody who has moved even beyond these gunas. So he's completely in control of everything that he thinks, he speaks, and he does. So his thoughts, speech, and action are all in sync, and everything in his life is completely under his control. That is a status or a position that I'm sure many of us would like to attain in order to find salvation or liberation from this continuous cycle of birth and death. But of course, it's easier said than done. So before I begin, I have a short presentation on Dattatreya because there were many points that I wanted to cover and I did not want to miss any, just relying on my memory. So before I start the presentation, as you very kindly shared, I've written 3 books. on what is called pop mythology, for want of a better term. And these books are a mix of, they're an amalgamation of, fiction, fact and fiction based on the scriptures, but made relevant for the modern audience. And I would like to share a few passages from my first book, Vishwamitra, where Dattatreya is introduced for the first time. Once we move ahead with the session, I'll share how Dattatreya plays a role in the lives of many, many important personalities of the past. But to begin with, and before we start seeing the presentation, I would just like to read a few passages to you. And this would give you an idea of what I feel about Dattatreya, how he's described the iconography, which is how the popular representation of Dattatreya is in the mind of a lot of people. And when we are going through the presentation, I'll tell you how it differs from what the scriptures tell us as well. So this is the 10th chapter of my first book. And I'm just going to read quickly through so that we don't waste too much time on this. The boys were hardly a few days old, but after Ruchik's showdown, Kadi wanted them to be blessed by as many sages and magi as he possibly could take them to. Since he was aware of the Brahmin propensity in his own son, he was eager for him to begin military training as soon as he began walking. Finding the right teacher was therefore imperative. Yamdagari would also require a spiritual guide, and Kadi wanted both the boys to learn from the same teacher, if possible, so that they developed a camaraderie and could help each other in the future. Of all the rishis he had met throughout the day, there was only one that seemed to fit the bill. The man in consideration sat outside the palace boundaries, sharing the food given as prasadam with stray dogs on the street. He seemed youthful, yet had a wisdom written on his age, for his age, written on his face. A trident lay beside him, and he wore rudraksh beads and saffron robes that were a complete contrast to his milky white skin. When Kadi saw him from a distance, his first thought was that the monk was disrespecting the sanctified food. He walked up to where the young rishi sat and was about to admonish him when the man looked up. Kadi was shocked. The man had 3 eyes. He immediately understood that this was no ordinary rishi and fell down at his feet. The young sage looked at him with compassion and said in a voice that boomed like thunder, "Dear king, don't be apologetic, for even if the words forming in your mind were rough, the intention behind them wasn't." Kadi apologized for what he had been about to say, and the rishi laughed. "Why should I feel hurt by your unsaid words? You provided food to a hungry sage who just happened to be passing through your kingdom on his journey to the great white mountains. I should be thankful to you for your kindness, for words dissolve in thin air and dissipate, but food dissolves in the gastric juices to provide energy." Kadi realized this man was an accomplished sage and humbly asked him who he was. And the young sage revealed his name, Dattatreya. The king could not believe his ears. This was the Dattatreya whom legend declared to be the incarnation of Lord Shiv himself, the author of Tripura Rahasya, a treatise on Advait Vedanta, and the brother of the moon god to whose lineage Kadi's own Chandravansh belonged. Though he must have been extremely old, his body radiated the youth and charm of an adolescent boy. He seemed to be younger and fairer version of Lord Shiv himself, with his 3 eyes, matted hair, and a trident lying by his side. Kadi wondered why such a personage was associating with lowly animals like dogs, and Dattatreya smiled in response. "I have an affinity for these creatures, and they seem to sense it," he said. "Wherever I go, I find myself surrounded by them, and I love their company. I have learned one thing in the world of men. A human being may let you down by his or her actions, but a dog will always stay by your side, no matter what you do or fail to do. These are the most guileless and loving creatures on this planet, and I share the prasadam with them to give them the benefit of its sanctified nature. So I'll stop here and let you read the rest of it if you have been interested by what I told you. And I'll move on to the presentation now. And we'll see how it all fits in, the description that I've just shared, how it all fits in with the talk today. Please let me know if the slides are visible.
Yes, they are. They are, Dr. Vineet.
Great. So we start the session properly today with a description of Dattatreya. As you heard from the excerpt that I just read, Dattatreya is supposed to have 3 eyes. He's supposed to have, he's supposed to look like a monk, and he's very scantily clad in saffron robes. And he's followed by dogs wherever he goes. So that's the first bit that you find very unusual. You know, in Hinduism, dogs are not considered very clean and very pure animals. So you find dogs associated with very, very limited incidents. And most of the times, the dogs are not a major or an important character in these stories. One example where they are important, of course, is the final journey of the Pandavas after the Mahabharata war, when they renounce the kingdom and they move and they try to get to heaven in their own bodies. And that's when a dog is accompanying them. But you don't really find dogs very positively mentioned in a lot of scriptures. So that was the first thing that I noticed about, because I'm a dog lover, and I'm not sure how many others in the audience are as well. But Dattatreya is one of the only saints I found who is associated with dogs, and not just one. You know, generally you find there are about 4 dogs around him. And there are different interpretations of this symbolism. But before we move to that, we'll also see if it's clear from the pictures that I've shared on the slide, what else is important in his iconography. So he's generally shown with 3 faces. He has 6 hands, and these hands are holding the weapons of the Trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh. And you'll notice that the 3 faces also resemble the faces of the 3 gods of the Trinity. So one of the faces here has 3 eyes. In the second picture, one of the main body is shown darkish, bluish in hue, just as Lord Vishnu is shown. The weapons of the gods, the Shankh, Chakra, Trishul, Damaru, and the rosary and the Kamandal that Brahma holds, all of them are here. Dattatreya is also shown very frequently with a cow standing behind him. And this cow is variously interpreted as either Gayatri, the mother of the Vedas, or as Kamdhenu. So in a way, the depiction of Kamdhenu behind Dattatreya shows that he has the power to fulfill any wishes of the devotees. And he, interestingly, out of all the avatars of Lord Vishnu, it's only Krishna and Dattatreya who are shown very commonly associated with cows. Now, you may get confused because I mentioned in my book that he is considered an avatar of Shiva, but now I'm saying that he's an avatar of Vishnu, and we'll come to that. The dogs that we mentioned earlier, they are supposed to represent the 4 Vedas. So very interestingly, because dogs are not considered very holy or very clean animals, but still the interpretation is that as loyal as the dogs are, the Vedas or the knowledge is as loyal to Guru Dattatreya. He is, as mentioned earlier, he is considered the foremost or the Adi Guru. So his position is second only to Shiva in that respect. And therefore, the knowledge that he's sharing, also because the Vedas are sort of, they are, Brahma is in charge of the Vedas. And since he is considered a syncretic avatar of the Trinity, he has to be associated with Vedas in one way or the other. But these are interpretations, and you may feel free to, analyze the images and feel what, and share, and please do share as well what you think, these animals surrounding Dattatreya represent.
In fact, Maninder Monga just mentioned that he heard that the dogs accompanying Lord Dattatreya symbolize the senses which the Lord keeps in his control.
That is interesting, yes. But as I said, there are many interpretations, but the senses, as we all know, are 5. And in most of the scriptures, actually, they talk about the 10 senses. So it's not just the motor, it's not just the motor senses, the sensory organs as well as the motor organs. So the Indriyas, of course, Dattatreya, as I mentioned, he's an Avadhut. So he's in complete control of all the senses. But again, this is open to interpretation, but most scholars, from what I've read, think of the dogs representing the knowledge which is as subservient to the guru as a dog is to its master. So there is no disrespect intended in this description or imagery. It just highlights that how much in control Dattatreya is of the knowledge that exists in the world. Now, very interestingly, the scriptural description of Dattatreya does not match with these images at all. So whichever scriptures you pick up where Dattatreya is mentioned, whether it is the Purans, whether it is the Tantra literature, yes, Dattatreya, as I said, he's a master. He's a master of all sorts of knowledge that exists. So he is associated with the Vedic scriptures. He's associated with the Agam literature. He is also associated with the Upanishads and surprisingly, the Tantra literature. So that is another interesting discussion point that we'll have in a bit. But to begin with, the description of Dattatreya in the scriptures does not match what we see today in popular imagery. In the scriptural descriptions, Dattatreya is shown as a simple monk. He has in his hands the beads, the rosary, and the kamandal. Or he is shown empty-handed, one with the one hand in Abhay Mudra and another one in the Var Mudra. And he has only one face and he has 2 hands. That is it. That is the general description. And again, very interestingly, the 2 major Purans that talk about the Dattatreya incarnation are the Bhagavad Puran and the Markandeya Puran. Both of these, they mention Dattatreya as an incarnation of Lord Vishnu and not a syncretic or a composite avatar of the Trinity. So this is extremely interesting, for me as a researcher and a writer on what we know, for lack of a better term, it's called mythology. But of course, a lot of people have an objection with that, myself included. But just for the sake of this discussion, we'll just, keep things simple. And as a researcher and a writer on the Puranic stories, it's very interesting that the depiction that we see of Dattatreya today in temples throughout Maharashtra, in parts of Gujarat, in parts of Karnataka, you would see Dattatreya represented in this manner, with 3 heads and 6 arms and this typical, Trinity description. But the older scriptures, they mention him as 2-hand, 1-faced, simple monk, simple-looking monk. And there are temples that have the deity in the same form as well. So if you just go to Wikipedia and you search, you go to the page on Dattatreya, they have some nice images. And one of them is the image of 2-handed Dattatreya. I think I have it here as well. No, I think, okay, I missed that. But what I want to highlight is that the scriptures have a different description of the Lord from what we see today in popular mythology. And the scriptures, as I also emphasized, describe him as an incarnation of Lord Vishnu only. So we'll come to the story and we'll figure out, we'll discuss this because I don't have an answer to how this syncretic description happened. But we can arrive at some, possible reasons, and we can have a discussion around that as well. So please feel free to write in whenever you want to share any thoughts, and I would request Anjali ji to please share whatever is coming in, so that we can all learn from each other here and know more about this amazing enigmatic personality. So before we go on to the discussions, Dattatreya, the name itself tells the story of his birth. So Datta is something that you give in Dan, and Atreya comes from Atri Rishi. Atri is the father of Dattatreya. So something that was given to Atri as a Dan is Dattatreya. That's the significance of his name. So he is the son of Rishi Atri and Anasuya. A lot of people in Maharashtra perhaps would be aware of the name of Anasuya. And Atri, even though a very accomplished Rishi, somehow is not as popular as, say, Brahma Rishi, Vashisht, or even Vishwamitra. But he's a very accomplished Rishi. He's one of the Saptarishis, and I've mentioned the names of the other rishis here, along with Bharadwaj, Gautam, Jamdagni, Kashyap, Vashisht, and Vishwamitra. Atri is one of the Saptarishis. Not just that, Atri is also one of the 10 Manasputras of Brahma, the mind-born sons of Brahma. So Brahma didn't really procreate in a human fashion. He created a lot of beings out of his thoughts. And the first 10, the first, of course, were the 4 Kumars, but we're not going into that. And then came the Manasputras, who were 10 in number. And Atri is one of them. Now, a lot of these sages, they find mention in the Purans or in later literature, but they're not present in the Vedic literature. Now, interestingly, Atri is one of the rare rishis who has been mentioned right from the Vedas to the Purans to the Itihas scriptures. He's the composer of the 5th mandal of Rigved. He is one of the founders of the Vaikhanas Vaishnavism, which is quite popular in the South. In fact, I'm not sure how many people are aware, the Tirupati temple it follows the Vaikhanas Vaishnavism, a branch of Vaishnavism. So it's a temple dedicated to Vishnu, but it's based on the Vaikhanas principles. He's the father of Atri, is the father of 4 illustrious children, and we'll come to those further. And in the Ramayana, he met Ram and Sita in his ashram at Chitrakoot. And if any of you remember the Ramayana and the journey of their exile from where they started and where they reached, right through the journey, Ram, Lakshman, and Sita were meeting rishis who were there in the Dandak Aranya. And one of the first rishis they met, of course, was Bharadwaj, who directed them to move to Chitrakoot. And in Chitrakoot, they met Atri. Now, Atri's wife, Anasuya, she gifted Sita ji a pair of clothes that would never get soiled in the jungle, and they would never need washing or repairs or anything, because the two princes and Sita, they were dressed in the garb of mendicants or forest dwellers, and that's how they left Ayodhya. So they were dressed in bark, etc., the clothing which was very rough. And Anasuya gave Sita a pair of a sari and clothing, which would help her protect her modesty throughout the 14 years of exile. So they have played very small but important role in the journey of various characters. And I'm giving you this background so that we understand, where uh, Dattatreya is coming from. He's the son of such illustrious parents who have met multiple incarnations, who have played a significant, even if small, but significant part in the stories of many other avatars as well. So the story of his birth, as told from the Srimad Bhagavatam is, and you don't have to read the slides, I'll just narrate it in short, was that Brahma, when he created the 10 Manasputras, basically his purpose was to fill the creation with living beings. That was his directive from Lord Vishnu, that you are the creator and you have to create worlds that are suitable for life to exist. And the living beings, the creation of living beings was also a responsibility of Brahma. So Brahma created Manasputras with the desire to populate the world. But most of these Manasputras were being born of Brahma. They were too exalted and they were too, they were self-aware, and they did not want to get entrapped in the entire mess that you get into once you get involved with procreation and having a family, and then you want to provide for the family, and then you want to see your sons and daughters get married, and then the grandsons and granddaughters, and so on and so forth. So most of the rishis, they were very hesitant. And Atri was given Anasuya as his bride. And both of them, they did not really fancy living the life of a householder. But Atri did not want to deny his father, Brahma, the one thing that he had asked him to do. So Atri and Anasuya, they pray to the Trinity and they ask them for help. They basically do not want to get into the biological process of creation, but they want the gods' help to bless them with sons and daughters. So when Atri is praying to the gods, the three gods, they appear and they tell Atri that since you have desired all three of us to be born as you have desired children from all three of us, we shall be born as your children. And accordingly, there were three sons who were born to Atri and Anasuya. From Brahma, there came Soma, who was the moon god, Chandrama. From Lord Vishnu came Dattatreya. And from Lord Shiv came Durvasa Rishi. So Durvasa, again, a lot of people may be aware of his name, especially if you've read the works of Kalidas, the Abhigyan Shakuntalam, and various other stories. If you are in a habit of reading scriptures, he finds mention, and sometimes he finds himself in a tight spot because of his anger. And that's because Durvasa is an incarnation of Lord Shiv. And he is angry just like Rudra. Soma is a Prajapati. He is the god not just of moon, but also of vegetation, of trees, of water bodies. And he is the sort of an incarnation of Brahma. And Dattatreya is the incarnation of Lord Vishnu. That is one story. And the second story that comes from the Markandeya Puran talks about a certain rishi called Kaushik, who tripped over a sage called Mandavya and was cursed to die at sunrise. So Kaushik's wife apparently was a very accomplished Rishika by the name of Sandali, and she cursed the sun not to rise to save the life of her husband. So the entire rhythm of the universe is thrown out of the window because the sun cannot rise and the morning cannot happen. So the gods go to the Trinity again, and the Trinity advises them that since it is a rishi's wife who has, kind of directed the sun not to rise, it would be helpful if another rishi's wife can counter this curse and she can convince Sandali to drop this condition. So the gods go to Anasuya. That's how accomplished she was. Imagine the caliber of Atri and Anasuya, that the gods need to come to them for help. And the gods, the Trinity themselves, are more than happy to be born as their children. So the gods go to Anasuya for help, and she is the one who is able to convince Sandali. And she takes a boon from the gods that her husband will not be killed once the sun rises. And the gods are so grateful that they grant the boon, and she allows the sun to rise. And because of her good deed in saving the universe from, or the cycle of the universe from collapsing, she is given a boon by the Trinity, where the three gods are born respectively as Soma, as Dattatreya, and as Durvasa. So any thoughts on this story? Any thoughts on this origin story?
I think we're so very absorbed with your stories. We just want you to continue and tell us more.
Sure. So I find it fascinating that, there were rishis and sages of such caliber in the ancient times. Of course, he's not an ordinary human. He's the son of Brahma himself. So the son of the creator God. So Atri and Anasuya, they are, they have the power, or even this other Rishika that we're talking about, Sandali, she had the power to stop the sun from rising. That is something amazing. That is, and you've never heard of this lady, right? We've never heard of something like this happening. So they were more, the more you go into the scriptures, the more fascinating characters you find. And Dattatreya, as coming back to our topic, is one of these fascinating characters. And he was therefore born by the combined blessing of the Trinity. And I think this is where, the concept of him having been born as a composite incarnation stems from, to begin with. And of course, there are other reasons that we can talk about later. But the primary reason is that in both the stories, it is the Trinity of the gods, the holiest of holy of the Hindu pantheon, that bless Atri. And this is where the three children are born. And Dattatreya is the second. First is the eldest is Soma, second is Dattatreya, and the third is Durvasa. Now coming to Dattatreya's timeline, or Dattatreya's role in the pantheon, you don't really hear a lot about him. So how is it that, while we have Parshuram and Sri Ram and Sri Krishna and even the other, the Dashavatha are so popularly known, how is it that Dattatreya is not so well known? So Dattatreya, first of all, was born way back in the mists of time. He was born in the 10th Mahayug of the Swayambhu Manvantar, which was the first Manvantar. We are currently in the 7th Manvantar of the 51st day of Brahma, of the first day of the 51st year of Brahma. So he was born in the first Manvantar of this day, in the 10th Mahayug. Some scriptures mention that he was born in the Satyug, while others say that he was born in the Treta Yug. But again, he was there in the 10th Mahayug. And he's listed as the 6th incarnation of Lord Vishnu. Now, a lot of people may get confused because we've only heard of the 10 incarnations or the Dashavatar. But in reality, there are hundreds and hundreds of incarnations of Lord Vishnu. They have to be, because he's promised to appear whenever evil rises, and in different forms, in different yugas, in different places. So presumably, if there is life on other planets, he would have appeared there as well in different forms. So the Bhagavad Puran lists 23 or 24 major incarnations of Lord Vishnu, and the Dashavatar have been picked from this same list. But out of the original list of the 24, Dattatreya is the 6th incarnation. As I mentioned earlier, he's an Avadhut. The term is very rarely used for any other rishi. This is a term which is specifically assigned to Dattatreya. And an Avadhut implies somebody who is beyond the ego consciousness, beyond the three gunas, beyond duality, beyond the common worldly concerns, and he acts without consideration for standard social etiquette. So he is, at many places, in fact, in many of the prayers or the mantras or the hymns dedicated to Dattatreya, he's described as a Digambara. So Digambara is somebody who is not wearing any clothes, who's clad by sky clad. So if there are any Jain people in the audience, you would know what I'm talking about, because there's a Digambara and the Shvetambara sect. So Digambara is somebody who believes not, he does not believe in social etiquette, as in, covering yourself. They believe in living life as they were born, as, the gods have given them whatever form they have received, and that's how they want to live their life. So you see, how this is different from the iconography that we see of Dattatreya. He's referred to at multiple places as an unattached monk. But then there are also stories where he is mentioned to have a consort who is named Anaga. Again, it's a very popular name in Maharashtra, but you don't see it outside. And having lived in Mumbai for a really long time, I can tell you that I've never heard this name outside of Maharashtra, at least in North. So I am basically from Chandigarh, and I'm sitting here in the winter with the temperature being about 5 degrees. And I've never heard of that. I had never heard of Dattatreya before coming to Mumbai. And there was a very small shrine to Dattatreya near my hostel, the medical college where I was studying. And that's the first time I saw his image. And I was quite fascinated because I had never seen this form of God before. And interesting, that's where the enigma of Dattatreya started for me. And I'll take you through all the contradictions that are mentioned about him in various forums. He is also, so a lot of people who know that he was married or he had a consort don't know that he had a son or he had any children, because he was an unattached monk, or he was an Avadhut who's beyond the requirements of a regular social family life. But the Mahabharata tells us about the origin of the Shraddha ceremony, and therein is a mention of Nimi, of a rishi called Nimi, who is mentioned clearly as the son of Dattatreya. And now, some may say that this may be some other Nimi and some other Dattatreya. Why does he have to be related to the guy we are talking about, or the Dattatreya in question? But it's very clear that it is the same one and the same person, because in the same story, even though Dattatreya does not feature, he does not appear, but Nimi's grandfather Atri comes there and tells Nimi that yes, whatever you've started, this new ritual is sanctified by the scriptures, and this will be known as the Shraddha ceremony. So we know that it is the same person, it is the same Dattatreya, and then this Nimi, who's another rishi, is a son of Dattatreya. So I think here, yes, I have the image. So you see two different images now. One as an unattached incarnation of Vishnu, who does not have 3 heads, but he does have 6 hands here in this image. And another image showing him with a goddess who looks very similar to Lakshmi. So this Lakshmi, or this consort, is mentioned as Lakshmi in various incidents as well. She's clearly mentioned as Lakshmi. So that again sort of corroborates that Dattatreya is an incarnation of Vishnu primarily, and whatever associations that he developed with the other 2 gods of the Trinity came about later through the development of his the evolution of this particular deity. Now, a very interesting story that I wanted to share about Anaga is about how she first came into being. She was not a goddess. She was not a human, somebody's daughter like Parvati. She was created by Dattatreya himself. So interestingly, there's this story again in the Markandeya Puran where Dattatreya is accosted by hundreds of munis. And these munis, they know him and they recognize Dattatreya as a foremost rishi and a guru, and they want to become his disciples. And Dattatreya decides to test them. He does not pay any attention to them. He goes to the bank of a lake, and there he creates a woman, a beautiful, gorgeous, voluptuous woman, and his purpose is to test whether the disciples or the would-be disciples are worth taking into his tutelage. So he basically is testing the other monks, the young acolytes, whether they are worthy of being tutored by him. So he creates this woman, and the thought that is going on in his mind is that if they start judging me because I am with a beautiful woman, then I know that they are not worth my consideration. So he emerges out of the water after 100 years of penance, and he emerges with this beautiful woman. The munis do not run away. They do not find it contradictory, because a lot of rishis are supposed to be celibates, but they do not find any problem with him having a wife. So he still decides to test them further, and he creates some intoxicating liquors and wines, and he starts drinking them with his wife. The munis are aghast at what is happening, but they still do not run away. And the scriptures, they mentioned, and I quote, though he was engrossed in drinking spirituous liquor in company with his wife, and though he was rendered impure by addiction to singing, musical instruments, and such like, and also by intercourse with his wife, deeming that the high-souled Muni, when with her, was detached from religious rites, the monks, the other acolytes, did not run away. So interestingly, why I wanted to share this was because, one, this is the direct story of the creation of Anaga. And secondly, it speaks volumes about, the religious life, or the life of so-called religious men. A lot of us believe that, celibacy or brahmacharya has been considered a major requirement for spiritual advancement, which is true. A control on all the senses is required. But what Dattatreya was trying to show was that even when you are a rishi or a celibate, it is very easy to slip from the path, as was shown by Vishwamitra in main episode. But the challenge is to stay in a domestic setting and still not deviate from the path that you're walking on or that you have chosen. So Dattatreya had his consort with him. He was indulging in some public displays of affection. He was indulging in drinking wine and singing and merrymaking. But that did not mean that he was not serious about his spiritual quest. And it is a very interesting story that I think it sort of contradicts everything that we've heard before. And I have never heard of a story or never come across a story where the rishi has shown or sort of broken all restraints in front of his disciples. But of course, this was a way of Dattatreya to check whether the so-called or the would-be disciples were really worth all the effort or not. So this is the first story of creation of where you find Anaga. And the second story is when the gods were defeated by the demons and they requested Dattatreya's help. So interestingly, again, we've never heard of Dattatreya in context of the Devas and Daityas. We've always heard the Devtas running to Brahma or Shiva or Vishnu. But here is a story that mentions the Devtas running to Dattatreya for help. And Dattatreya tells them to call all the Asuras to his ashram. And he tells them that let them bring their armies to my ashram. And the idea was that the Asuras, they are so bereft of any control over their senses that the moment they saw Anaga, who was the most beautiful woman because she was created by Dattatreya just for the purpose to show that, he was with a really gorgeous lady, and so she was one of the most enticing women that the Daityas could lay their eyes on. And the idea was to distract them. And the Daityas, as was expected, they captured Anaga and they mounted her in a palki and they ran away with her. So Dattatreya just smiles and he speaks to the gods. You see, Lakshmi is being born on the heads of the Daityas. She has passed beyond the 7 stations and now she will reach another. Again, a very interesting statement here is that when you keep Lakshmi on your head, she will not stay with you. Which means that once you become the servant of Lakshmi or of riches or of material possessions, she will definitely forsake you. So the way to keep Lakshmi is not to be to run after her, but by making Lakshmi run after you. And he says that Daityas have abducted, a sinless. Anaga, by the way, means sinless. That is the meaning of the Sanskrit word. And what he's basically telling the gods is that they have abducted a sinless woman who's devoted to her husband. So all the powers that they had, they amount to nothing. And now you will be able to defeat them. That is the whole purpose of this episode. But I wanted to share these because these are the 2 episodes where Anaga or Lakshmi as the consort of Dattatreya is very clearly mentioned. And it also gives us an insight into the mind of Dattatreya, of how his teaching methods were so radical and so different from what any of us are probably, we have come across. So any questions? I'll just take a break here. Any questions that have come up or anybody wants to say something?
There is a question, not a question, but Hemu says that I've heard the story that when Parshuram's bow was broken by Lord Ram, he got very angry at that time and was advised to go to Dattatreya, and there he sees a man sitting with dogs around and a woman on his thigh. That time Parshuram takes him as his guru.
Right.
Is that
right.
true? Is it believed?
Yes, yeah? Yes, that's very right. That's very true, and I'll come to that episode as well. But here again, it's an echo of the same story where Parshuram is a little surprised to see somebody who's supposed to be guiding him sitting with a woman on his thigh. So it's the same shock value that the story holds, and we'll come to the story, the episode of Parshuram meeting Dattatreya later.
There's another question by Bhushan. He would like your views on in the many forms we take over ages, we have different parents. If our soul is gaining in enlightenment in each life, why is it referred to a dependent on the parents? Like you said, Dattatreya had such accomplished parents.
Right. So I don't think it's a compulsory requirement to have accomplished parents. I feel so I used to go to a lot of lectures when I was studying in Nair Hospital, and the ISKCON temple at Chowpatty was quite close, and I've attended quite a lot of sessions, the Sunday sermons that were given there. And I think this question had come up in one of the sessions, and the answer from what I remember was that it is not necessary that you have accomplished parents, but you definitely need some setting that can release you from the basic requirements of life, such as either you're born to rich parents where you don't have to worry about your livelihood and you can focus on spiritual pursuits, or you are born to parents who may be poor but they are very intelligent or they are very spiritually inclined, so that they guide you towards the right path. And of course, there's also the option that you are born to parents who are completely opposed to the idea of spirituality, such as Bhakt Prahlad. So Prahlad was born to parents whose his mother possibly was not so antagonistic to the worship of Lord Vishnu, but his father definitely was. He did not want to hear the name of Vishnu. But just by virtue of having gained shelter in Narad's ashram while he was in the womb of his mother, Prahlad developed that the propensity or the inclination towards reciting the names of the Lord that helped him become a spiritual, a shining example even amongst the daityas of a devotee. And so I don't feel that necessarily it is dependent on your parents, but it would definitely be helpful if your karma is taking you to a higher plane, or a higher level on this spiritual journey. The odds are that you will be born in a family that is either more spiritually inclined, or where you would have the ways and means to not worry about the basic necessities of life, and you can focus on the spiritual path. But of course, the veil of Maya is such that when you're born in a more affluent family, you tend to forget the spiritual path, and you start focusing more on the again on the material enjoyments. But the purpose, as one of the sermons from what I remember, and it made sense to me. So that you will be born in a family where it is more conducive for you to follow this path.
Thank you. That was really, a very profound explanation. Can we continue from here?
Sure.
Yeah.
So again, interestingly, because we mentioned Prahlad, he was after growing up, Dattatreya is one of the gurus that he meets in his life. So Prahlad and his three brothers, I don't remember the episode clearly, but I remember that they chance upon this traveling naked monk who is Dattatreya. And Dattatreya imparts knowledge about the entire spiritual process and salvation to Bhakt Prahlad, who was born with the name of the Lord in his mouth. So Dattatreya, again, a very he's there at the crucial moments of a lot of people's lives, and he is still unfortunately not very well known, and that's what we are trying to remedy in this session. So I hope this is helpful. So in Srimad, who were his gurus? Where did Dattatreya himself learn from? That's again a question that might crop up. So one would assume that being the son of Atri and Anasuya, he would have imbibed a lot of knowledge as a child itself. And some of the scriptures mention that he left home very early in his childhood itself, and he started wandering around. So he did not take any guru, not even his own father, as his guru. And in the Bhagavad Puran, Yadu, who's the father of the Yadav dynasty, in which Sri Krishna is born later, he meets Dattatreya and he asks him about his guru. And the Avadhuta replies, "O king, I have taken shelter of 24 gurus, who are the following." the earth, the air, sky, water, fire, moon, sun, pigeon, python, the sea, the moth, the honeybee, an elephant, a honey thief, the deer, the fish, a prostitute called Pingala, the kurara bird, and a child, and the young girl, a maiden, an arrow maker, a serpent, a spider, and a wasp. My dear king, by studying their activities, I have learned the science of the self. Again, one of the most bizarre incidents that you would find in the lives of any rishi is that he does not have a guru of his own. He's sort of self-realized, and we can compare him to what Buddha achieved, the enlightenment that Buddha achieved by deep diving into his own conscience. He did not go to any gurus. He, of course, did try different methods of penance, etc., before he decided to deep dive into his own consciousness. And Dattatreya, very interestingly, is learning from his environment. He has not gone within for now, but to go within, he has gained the knowledge from his external environment. And these are the 24 gurus that he lists down. So here, again, I have used these 24 gurus in one of my books, which is Bharat, where Vishwamitra is teaching the young Bharat some very valuable life lessons. And I've used this fascinating, incident from Dattatreya's life to, enhance the knowledge of my own characters in the book. And here I would just stop sharing for a bit, and I would like to share an excerpt, recite or read some passages again from the book Bharat. Right. So Sarva was 5 now, and the Brahmarishi had decided to start his formal education in the same way as he had been trained by Rishi Dattatreya. As the boy came running on his pudgy feet for his first lesson, Vishwamitra said with a barely suppressed smile, "Your mother worries that you spend too much time fighting with other boys. Perhaps you should start devoting more time to learning a bit about the scriptures with this old man." Sarvadaman gave him a roguish smile and said innocently, "But I don't fight with anyone, Pitama. If they tease me and call me a small boy, I just show them that I am not smaller than them." His grandfather finally gave in to his urge to smile and said, "Well, you are a small boy, even if you don't look like one. It is good to not let anyone bully you, but you have to ensure you don't become a bully yourself. Our true strength lies in learning from our experiences, and we shall commence our lesson with a few examples from our surroundings. So are you ready?" Sarvadaman nodded eagerly, remembering what his mother had said to him a few days ago. He was lucky to have a Brahmarishi as his teacher. Not many could boast of that distinction, and he would do well to imbibe all the knowledge that Vishwamitra had to share. His grandfather and guru started the lesson. We begin today with the 10 gurus of nature. The very first of these is Prithvi, our Mother Earth. Can you think of something that we could learn from her? Is it generosity? The young prince asked, surprising his grandfather with his reply. Excellent. We should indeed learn how to serve selflessly, but there is also another lesson to be imbibed from Bhumi Devi, the goddess of the earth, and that is of developing infinite patience. No matter how we explore her resources, digging, mining, plowing, prodding, she bears the pain with patience, sharing her bounty when we have toiled hard enough to know its value. So along with her munificence, we also have to learn the art of endurance from her. The child noted down the 2 points diligently and then looked at his guru expectantly. Vishwamitra continued with the lesson. Our next teacher is Varun Dev, who governs the precious resource of water. Now, I'm sure when I say the names of these teachers, please also think in your mind, what if there's anything different that comes to your mind of what we could learn from these natural forces. Water can clean anything just by its touch, and we should strive to emulate that quality so that even if we come in contact with unscrupulous souls, the purity of our heart remains unaffected. Sarvadaman had barely noted this quality when his guru said, "Our third teacher is Vayu, the wind god. The wind moves through mountains, streams, deserts, and valleys with the same impartiality. We should also go through life without developing any biases or affection, for in the end, we all have to leave this world alone." The thought was confusing to the young child, and he asked, "Should I not even be attached to you?" The Brahmarishi understood his feelings and replied, "Of course you should. After all, family is the basic and first unit in the building of any society. But your attachment should not keep you from finding your own destiny. Our obligations to friends, elders, family, and society have to be fulfilled, but in a dispassionate manner. When people fail to do so, they end up favoring their own kith and kin at the expense of other more deserving candidates. A king, being the final decision maker in any kingdom, can never be partial." The train of thought led the boy to another question. Then why does a king not select the most capable person from his kingdom? Why is it that only a king's son or daughter can sit on the throne? So interestingly, this question had come up in another session that I had on some other um, portal platform. So, and this was the question that was asked that, what do you think, is democracy really worth, or was monarchy a better choice? So I've sort of answered that question, my thoughts here. Vishwamitra was impressed with the child's intuitive reasoning, and he replied with candor. Because even though this is the ideal way to select a ruler of the land, it is practically impossible to be completely fair in it. There are many tribes in our country that elect their own representatives, but as the size of the kingdom grows, it becomes more and more difficult to ensure that the people, while making their choice, are not swayed by their own attachments to clan, tribe, region, and such like. It takes a certain kind of leader, strong and charismatic, to bring citizens from different parts of a kingdom together. And such kings are few and far between. So our best option is to train the princes and princesses from a very young age to make them capable of running a kingdom, so that when the time comes, the king can choose one who is worthy to sit on the throne. While Sarvadaman made notes, the Brahmarishi continued, "The fourth teacher is Agni Dev, the god of fire, who not only provides heat, but also light. Just as fire burns itself to give light to others, we too should burn our own ego through knowledge and share the flame of enlightenment with those around us. The fifth guru is Dios, the ruler of the sky above, who shelters us from the fiery bodies of the solar system. He absorbs the impact of each meteor and asteroid that blazes through the heavens, saving life on this planet from complete extinction. As soldiers of Dharma, we should be strong enough to combat asuric powers and defend those under our protection." So the above five are the Panch Mahabhut, the building blocks of life. Now for the sixth guru, Surya, the sun god. Surya not only supports the 9 planets through the power of Samkarshan, but is also the primary source of energy that allows life to thrive on Earth. We should strive to be like the sun, passing on positive energy to everyone around us. Vishwamitra paused for a moment to gauge if Sarvadaman had understood the importance of his words. Satisfied with his observation, he moved on. "You love playing with the lion cubs that you asked your father to bring with you. So the next 4 teachers I'm going to talk about are the beasts of the jungle. Can you guess the first one?" Sarvadaman replied excitedly, "I'm sure it is the lion. He's the king of the jungle, so we should all be brave like him." "You are right about the lion's bravery, but how about the honeybee?" "The bee?" Sarvadaman asked in surprise. "What can the tiny stinging bee teach us?" Vishwamitra laughed at his grandson's expression. The size, color, beauty, gender, or race of a being is no consideration while choosing a teacher. Bees spend hours gathering honey from flowers spread far and wide, and it is we humans who take advantage of their hard work. There are two important lessons to be learned from them. First, we should not limit ourselves while gathering knowledge and should be willing to go where the path takes us. And second, it is useless to hoard things, for one day they shall pass on to someone else. Our next guru is the elephant, but not for the reason that you might suspect. Yes, it is a strong animal, but it also has a fabulous memory. These lumbering tuskers do not forget incidents for a long time, nor should we forget the lessons learnt during our life. Subtly, the Brahmarishi was introducing the concept of kingship to his grandson. The ninth teacher is the fish that is easily trapped by the fisherman's bait. We should learn to eschew greed, lest we fall in someone's trap and lose our independence. This is especially important for a king who may be lured by those seeking to fulfill their own ulterior motives. Our last guru for the day is the caterpillar, which goes through multiple stages of development to emerge as the beautiful butterfly. Just like a caterpillar, we should evolve continually, eventually letting go of the outer sheath of our body, so that in the end, our soul can free itself from the fetters of material bondage and attain nirvana. So this I have, of course, reduced the list from 24 to 10 in this particular chapter. But what I wanted to share here was that, all of us, when we see that list of 24 teachers, may have our own interpretations. We may have different lessons to learn from these 24 teachers. But the very fact that Dattatreya, who did not take an established guru as his teacher, and he decided to observe life around him and still emerged as an Avadhut, is something that I find very inspiring. And especially in this age, it is said that it is very difficult to find a guru or an honest or a true guru in today's time. And those of us who have found or who are in the process of finding someone who we can rely on for his teachings and his or her guidance, of course it's a great thing. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that from Dattatreya's own life journey, we can realize that even if you are unsuccessful in finding a guru, it does not mean that is the end of the road for you, at least on the spiritual journey. We have to take the lessons from the things that surround us and make them work for us in a way that we pick up the positive things and we move on in the journey of life that we want to create for ourselves. Any questions at this point?
Well, I think what we're really looking forward to hearing more is about his philosophy. What can we learn from his philosophy is what I think most people are sort of directing their comments on.
Sure. So let me just come back to the slides. And we'll just, so the 24 gurus, I think it's fairly easy to find, a PDF document on this online. And in the interest of time, I will not go too much. We've already covered 10 of these. So the teachings of Dattatreya have come to us through these conversations that he's had. And an interesting question, one of my friends asked when I told him that I'm doing a session on Dattatreya was, how come I've never heard of him before? And so I think, there are pockets in the country. There are people who have heard of Dattatreya because of the association with a few disciples or avatars that we associate with Dattatreya. In the north, you have the Nath Sampradaya, the Navnath, and the Matsyendranath, Gorakhnath, all these, the Hat yogis, so they consider Dattatreya to be the Adi Guru. And they associate him with Shiva, and they think of him as an incarnation of Shiva. So when we were discussing about, the Trinity, the concept of Dattatreya being the avatar of the Trinity, I think while scriptures mention that he was an avatar of Vishnu, the popular traditions in many ways make him an avatar of Shiva, especially in the Nath Sampradaya. The other famous disciples, or I would say expansions or incarnations of Dattatreya that are considered by the devotees is Sripad Sri Vallabha. He is he's in a disciplic succession where there is Sri Narasimha Saraswati, there is Swami Samarth. Swami Samarth, I'm sure a lot of people, at least in Maharashtra, would be aware of, and also the association with Dattatreya. So this association comes through Sripad Sri Vallabha and Sri Narasimha Saraswati, and this I think has percolated down to some of the masses who are aware of these particular groups or sects, and they may be aware of some of his teachings. But Dattatreya is credited with a lot of teachings which which we would never imagine. He is associated with Patanjali, and he is thought to have taught the Yoga Sutras, the Yam and Niyam, the Ashtanga Yoga, so to say, to Patanjali. He is credited with teaching the Tripura Rahasya to Parshuram. So the question earlier about Parshuram meeting Dattatreya, that is where the Tripura Rahasya is first mentioned, and it is a Shakta text basically. So the Avadhuta Gita is one of the other very important teachings of Dattatreya. I think probably the most important one, most significant one, and it's a very short text. It has just 8 chapters, and just like you have the Bhagavad Gita, which is divided in 18 chapters, the Avadhuta Gita is a text on very similar concepts, and I'll touch upon a few of those further. But the Avadhuta Gita is primarily an Advaita Vedanta book. So it promotes Advaita Vedanta, whereas the Bhagavad Gita is not very clear on, it is more of a Dvaita, and some scholars argue that you can also find Advaita concepts in it. But Avadhuta Gita is an out and out Advaita Vedanta scripture. There's also the Dattatreya Upanishad, which is associated with the Atharva Ved, and there are many other smaller scriptures where Dattatreya and his teachings find mention. So I'll just take you through a few of these teachings. In the Tripura Rahasya, as I said, it is a Shakta-oriented scripture. And this is the incident where Parshuram, what has happened is that Parshuram has achieved all that he wanted to in his life. He's killed the Kshatriyas 21 times, and and I think the earlier session we had was on Parshuram, right? So we have discussed this particular incident, or not this particular incident of him meeting Dattatreya, but how and why of Parshuram killing 21 generations of Kshatriyas. But when Parshuram is faced with Lord Ram, he is defeated for the first time in his life, and he's completely dejected. And he is not able to understand what has gone wrong, because he was able to defeat the Kshatriyas multiple times. So he's very dejected. And in that state, he comes across another Avadhut, another yogi, another saint who is roaming around in the forest like a madman. And this guy is called Samvarta. He is the brother of Dev Guru Brihaspati. And Samvarta tells Parshuram that you have to find Dattatreya, and you have to get your doubts cleared from Dattatreya. He does give him some knowledge, some information, but he tells him that Dattatreya is the one who would remove all your questions, who would answer all your questions. So the Tripura Rahasya, and I've just shared very small excerpts here, where I would what it focuses on is the primary curiosity, first of all, to begin with, within a human being, to know what else is beyond this physical life. So in one of the conversations, Dattatreya is telling Parshuram, you are fortunate, Bhargav, in having transcended that distracted state. Investigation is the root cause of all, and it is the first step to the supreme reward of indescribable bliss. How can anyone gain security without proper investigation? Can the sweet waters of dew collect in tropical sandy deserts which are already scorched by heat? Similarly, can the refreshing touch of discernment be sought in the red hot fire over the furnace of long burning ignorance? Discernment is, however, gained by proper methods, the most effective of which is also the best of all. And that is the supreme grace of the goddess who inheres as the heart lotus in everyone. Who has ever accomplished any good purpose without that grace? When the Supreme Devi is well pleased with the worship of the devotee, she turns into vichar in him. So vichar is the question, or the thought process basically that kindles the need to know more beyond the physical or material senses. It shines as a blazing sun in the expanse of his heart. So Tripura Rahasya again is available online, and I urge you to go through it just to understand, what Dattatreya is trying to say. So I'm not sure how many people are comfortable with the concept of Advaita versus Dvaita, but the questions that Parshuram is asking, they also get answered in a way in the Avadhuta Gita. And again, it is very, very similar to the questions that Arjun asked Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, where he is identifying himself with the body, and he is hesitating in performing his karma. But Krishna tells him that you're not this body, you are this soul. Now, in the Avadhuta Gita, what is happening is, and before I go on to some of the teachings, I'm just quoting Swami Vivekananda, who's commented on the Avadhuta Gita, and he has said, men like the one who wrote this song keep religion alive. They have actually realized they care for nothing, feel nothing done to the body, care not for heat, cold, danger, or anything. They sit still, enjoying the bliss of Atman. And though red hot coals burn the body, they feel them not. So this is what Swami Vivekananda, one of the most celebrated gurus that India has produced, had to say about the Avadhuta Gita. So I would again request everybody to go through it. It's a very short book, but it is full of the concepts of Advaita Vedanta. And you have to be comfortable first with the whole idea before you start imbibing what is mentioned in the book. So some of the teachings that are mentioned and I'm just going to share a few of those. He who has filled the universe, he who is self in self, how shall I salute him? So Dattatreya is asking, how am I to salute myself? I am the one who is the self in the self. I am the one who has filled the universe. So you see the nature of Bhagavad Gita versus Avadhuta Gita. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is telling Arjun that you are a part of me, but I am the super soul. You are a part of me. Whereas in Avadhuta Gita, Dattatreya, which is true to the Advaita concept, he is saying that I am that super soul. To know the Atman as my nature is both knowledge and realization. I am he. There is not the least doubt of it. No thought, no word, no deed creates a bondage for me. I am beyond the senses. I am knowledge and bliss. Basically, I am Sat, Chid, and Anand. There is neither existence nor non-existence. All is Atman. Shake off all ideas of relativity. Shake off all superstitions. Let caste and birth and devas and all else vanish. So these are the kind of thoughts that Dattatreya is sharing in Avadhuta Gita. And a few of these, again, I have taken some screenshots and sharing here with you. You are pure, homogeneous reality, disembodied, unborn, and immutable. Why do you think of yourself as I know it here or as I do not know? By such sentences as that thou art, which is the Tat Tvam Asi from the Upanishads, your own self is affirmed. Of that which is untrue and composed of the five elements, the Shruti says, not this, not this. This is basically in Sanskrit, it's called neti, neti, which is sort of a negative definition of God, where they are saying that God is not this, God is not that, but it is very difficult to describe what God is. So here, Dattatreya is saying that, it doesn't matter. I am God. I don't need to describe myself. I do not know the Supreme. How shall I speak of him? I do not know the Supreme. How shall I worship him? If I am the Supreme One, who is the highest truth, who is homogeneous being and like unto space, how then shall I speak of him and worship him? Very radical thoughts, very interesting thoughts from from a Advaita background, but they may be a little, they may sound even blasphemous to somebody who's not aware of the Advaita philosophy. But that is what Dattatreya is trying to teach. Know me to be that self who is everything and everywhere at all times, who is eternal, steady, the all, the non-existent and the existent. Have no doubt. There are no Vedas, no worlds, no gods, no sacrifices. There is certainly no caste, no stage in life, no family, no birth. There is neither the path of smoke nor the path of light. There is only the highest truth, the homogeneous Brahman. Why talk of being and becoming? Give up talking of dualism and Advaitism. When were you two that you talk of two or one? The universe is this holy one and he alone. Talk not of yoga to make you pure. You are pure by your very nature. None can teach you. So I've picked up very few excerpts from the text, and just to give you a flavor of what all is contained in these very enigmatic verses. But I hope this initiates a train of thought. It triggers a stream of questioning that you may not have heard, may or may not have heard before. And this is a very interesting philosophy that Dattatreya is presenting to us, wherein he is not mindful of the social norms. He is positively rejecting the varnashram dharma or the scriptures or the rituals or the gods themselves, because he says, Aham Brahmasmi, I am that Brahman, and I do not need any yoga or scripture or even a guru perhaps to identify with that Brahman. But this again, with a word of caution, because these are words coming from a spiritually realized Avadhut, and this does not mean that we as human beings get up tomorrow morning and we start saying no, the be all and end all of this universe, and I decide today what's going to happen with the universe. So of course that is not the purpose of these teachings, but the real idea behind these verses is to instigate us to start looking within instead of looking without, and of realizing that we are one with the Supreme Soul. And even though the path we choose to reach that realization may differ, as Bhagavad Gita says, the Gyan Yoga, Karma Yoga, or Bhakti Yoga, but the path may be different. For each of us, there may be a different path. But this path of Advaita philosophy may be something that works for people who identify with it. And it is definitely worth investigating. I think that's about it from me. And just last point that I wanted to share, again from the Avadhuta Gita, is that the Avadhuta Gita itself mentions what the Avadhut stands for. And it says that A stands for freedom from the snares of hopes and expectations, pure in the beginning, in the middle, and the end, merged in self-bliss. V stands for the rooting out of all desires after pleasure, subtle or material, and for life in the present as all sufficient, the present being eternity. The or DH here is the physical body covered with dirt and dust, but with the mind ever pure and the heart ever still, above contemplation and meditation. T is the unceasing contemplation of the eternal truth and indifference to the activities of the mind and senses. It also bespeaks freedom from egoism and pride. So that is all from me, from the teachings of Dattatreya. And before I end, I would just like to end with a prayer to the God, to the incarnation, to the avatar, to the Avadhuta, which goes something like this: Dattatreya Hare Krishna Unmat Ananda Dayaka Digambara Mune Bal Pishacha Gyan Sagara Om Dram Dattatreya Namaha. Thank you. Any questions, please feel free to share now.
That was fabulous, Dr. Vineet. It was, I mean, the philosophy so very resonates with what has been written in our books by Hingori and the Hingori Sutra series of books, where would urge our audience, dear friends, please be on a lookout for our the second edition of Atma Sutra, which covers a lot of these philosophies that were just discussed by Dr. Vineet. It took me back to our book Guru Sutra, where when you spoke about passing the baton on, or the seat, to the one who's worthy of it, and not through family and lineage. That's one of the points that were mentioned in Guru Sutra, where a Siddh Guru, does not look at hierarchy or any family connect, and there is no no senior or no junior, and it is the baton is always passed on to someone who is worthy of the seat.
Absolutely.
So beautifully, I mean, it did take back it while you were talking, while you were discussing about Dattatreya. A lot of these philosophies have been discussed in our book. So yeah, thank you very much for this
My
session.
pleasure, completely. My pleasure. I think, Dattatreya is, as I started, the session with, he's one of the most enigmatic characters. And as I mentioned through the course of the talk, he's present. He's influenced the lives of a lot of people that we know, but we still do not know of Dattatreya. So I hope I was able to, entrust at least a few of you into finding out more about him and, reading about his philosophies. And they are available
online. Absolutely. So here there's a question here. Is the word Avadhut, does it mean moksha or
so
the path to moksha?
Right. So Avadhut basically, from what I understand, means unfettered, someone who's not bound. So in a way, you can say that it is, moksha or salvation, because you're not bound to anything. But that is the primary meaning of the word. And surprisingly, you don't find it being coined for anyone else except for him.
Yeah. Right.
And you'll also find maybe some congruence with the Jain philosophies, where the Digambars come in, and a lot of the way Dattatreya is described is also very similar to Rishabh Dev, the Adinath, the first of the Tirthankars, the Jain Tirthankar. And why I'm mentioning here again is because a lot of people may not know that Rishabh Dev is also considered in Bhagavatam as one of the incarnations of Lord Vishnu. So it is interesting that two of these incarnations of Lord Vishnu showed these concepts of not caring about social requirements, and just rather three, I would say, including Buddha, that finding your own path in life.
Right. There's a question here that was put up on Instagram asking, Was Dattatreya in any form connected with Sai Baba? I mean, have you come across anything of that sort in your research?
Not in the scriptures, but that's a very popular conception where Sai Baba is considered an incarnation of Dattatreya. So you would see in many, many images, especially in Maharashtra, where Sai Baba is shown with Dattatreya in the background.
Right, right.
So a lot of people don't know Dattatreya, but they know Sai Baba as an incarnation of Dattatreya. So it's interesting, how these things survive. And Dattatreya, because of these associations, is still known to a lot of people.
Right, right. How many incarnations did Dattatreya meet or during his journey? Or
So see, he was there in the 10th Mahayug, and Parshuram was born in the 19th. And we do find mention of Parshuram meeting him to learn the Tripura Rahasya. But Dattatreya also plays a very important part in the life of the antagonist in the Parshuram story. So I think in my previous talk on Parshuram, I did mention that, the villain, so-called villain in the story is a guy called Kartavira Arjun, who is, extolled in the Purans as a very pious man to begin with. And there's also a mantra to Kartavira Arjun. And in fact, he has a temple dedicated to him in Maheshwar in Madhya Pradesh, where he's supposed to have merged into the body of Shiva. And this Kartavira Arjun is also a partial expansion of Lord Vishnu. And he is actually not of Lord Vishnu, he is considered to be an incarnation of the Sudarshan Chakra of Lord Vishnu. And he meets Dattatreya and he gets all his powers, and he's also called Sahasra Bahu Arjun. So he has 1,000 hands. And these hands he gained because of the blessings of Dattatreya. So he prayed to Dattatreya and he got a lot of very helpful boons from Dattatreya. So if we consider him also as a partial incarnation, he's there in the list. But of course, he met Parshuram. He did not meet Rama or Krishna because, he is not, he's there. His parents are there mentioned in the scriptures, but he's an Avadhut, so he doesn't really like interacting with people. And it's very rare, as you saw from the story, the beginning, he has been very hesitant to take on disciples. But I decided to make him the guru of my hero of the first book, Vishwamitra. And I think that's where my fascination with Dattatreya began. And I think we can all learn a lot from him, even if we don't really subscribe to the Advaita philosophy, but still there's a lot to learn from his teachings.
right. Yes, and there really seems to be a lot for all of us to learn, probably in multiple lifetimes, Dr. Vineet. And with this, I'd like to thank you with gratitude for spending so much of time, and enlightening us with yet another brilliant sage, Dattatreya. Thank you so much.
My pleasure completely. Thank you for having me here again.
Yeah, and thank you, dear audience. It was a pleasure having you with us again. Looking forward to meeting you next week. Good night. See you next week.